Hello, and welcome to the No Wrong Notes podcast, a show hosted by me, Veronica Kokos, holistic voice teacher and singer just like you. Grab a cup of tea, relax, and sit back as we discuss all things singing technique, mindset tips, and more so you can show up as the most confident and creative singer you can be. Hey y'all, welcome to yet another episode of No Wrong Notes. This week, I'll be sharing some tips on figuring out whether a voice teacher is the right one for you. We'll be digging into how to find a voice teacher that fits your needs, and if you're already in lessons with a teacher, some things that you'll want to keep in mind as you work with that teacher to make sure that it's the right fit for you. I'll preface this episode by saying that even as I'm providing some tips for how to figure out if a teacher is the right one for you, there really is no one-size-fits-all answer to the question of whether a voice teacher is the best fit for your vocal needs. We are all different people with different bodies, voices, and life experiences. And just because I'm offering up this information to you doesn't mean that it covers every single unique situation. After all, there have been times in my life where I was considering working with a teacher and they met all the criteria that I was looking for on paper, but it wasn't the best fit, and so I never took more than one lesson from them. So even as you listen to the tips that I'm about to share with you, use these tips as a starting point while understanding that every situation is unique. So this episode is really meant to be a starting point for things that you can think about when looking for a teacher, or if you're currently working with a teacher, things that you want to keep in mind. Now, if you're looking for a voice teacher to work with, like you've never worked with them before and you're kind of Googling and getting on social media looking for a teacher, and you're wondering if a teacher is a good bet to work with, there are some things that you'll want to consider. The first thing: what is the teacher's performing and educational background? And I will add the disclaimer that just because someone is an excellent performer doesn't mean that they're a good teacher. And just because someone has a doctorate in vocal performance doesn't make them a good teacher or singer. I know plenty of good singers who can't teach well, and that's totally okay. We all have the things that we are good at. I also know singers who went to a, quote, top-tier university or were certified in a certain program, but they also can't teach. So performance and educational experience or lack thereof don't necessarily make someone a good or bad teacher, but it can be useful information that may, and I really emphasize that may, give you a clue as to what their singing experiences might have been like, both in and outside of the classroom. Ultimately, just looking at someone's performance and educational info on their website isn't a good enough indicator as to whether they'll be the best fit for you. It might be some helpful information to start with, but you have to see for yourself whether the teacher is actually the right fit for you. Perhaps meeting with them for a trial lesson or a consult, which we'll talk about in a sec. But let's move on to number 2 on the list of things you'll want to consider when deciding what voice teacher you want to work with. Number 2, what does the teacher specialize in? What kind of teacher are they? Do they teach a wide variety of genres, or do they just specialize in one genre? For example, I teach a wide spectrum of genres from classical to pop, with the exception of screamo and metal, only because I'm still learning how to sing and teach those styles myself. But what I most emphasize to others is that I am a holistic voice teacher, meaning that when you work with me, we don't just dig into the technical side of singing, we're also doing mindset work, using meditation and talking through limiting thoughts that you're having while singing. We get a little far out at times. I mean, I love astrology, I love my intention cards, and sometimes we incorporate those into the lesson, but that's just me. There are other teachers in my area that specialize in classical singing only, and another teacher that primarily serves singer-songwriter types. The point is, What are you looking for? And I would say that this is maybe even more important than my first point about educational and performance experience, since obviously you're looking for something as a singer, as a potential voice student, and you really want to make sure that you're partnering up with a teacher that can really serve your goals. Now, the third thing you'll want to consider when looking for a voice teacher may seem odd, but it is important, and that is, are you looking for in-person or online lessons? And listen, some people really do need an in-person experience, but a lot of teachers teach phenomenally online, especially those with a good tech setup, though a teacher not having a good tech setup isn't necessarily a deal breaker. They may still be a fantastic teacher, and you may still get tons out of the experience. But opening yourself up to the possibility of online lessons can give you so many more options when it comes to teachers. For example, there may not even be a voice teacher that's located in your geographic area. Maybe you're in the middle of nowhere, and obviously that's a great place to live, but there may not be a voice teacher located in your area. Finding a teacher online can give you access to the kind of training that is not available in your immediate area. And if you're looking for a specific kind of training in musical theater repertoire, for example. Maybe you want to prepare for a musical theater audition, getting into college, that sort of thing. But a teacher with that expertise isn't available in your area. You'll definitely be able to find a teacher with that specialty online. Now, one of the questions that I sometimes get as a teacher who teaches a lot of students online is whether online lessons are as effective as in-person sessions. And while every learner is different and needs a learning experience that is specific to them, I will often answer this question by saying that I teach the same concepts and I teach the same way in person as I do online, like period. When we're online, sometimes we go a little bit slower through our warm-ups, but if anything, that's maybe a little bit more time, an opportunity for you to process what it is that you're taking in, all this information that you're taking in. I've even had students that have taken in-person lessons with me that tell me that their online experience is the exact same as their in-person experience. Of course, everyone is different, like I said at the beginning of this episode. But what is most important to me as a teacher, no matter whether I'm teaching in person or not online, is that the student truly understands what I am teaching them. We do not move on to the next exercise or concept until it makes sense to you. And that's why I'm always asking questions like, what does it mean for you to sing in this way? How does it feel to sing in this part of your voice? How does it feel to use your voice in this way? Like if we're belting, for example. I am really looking for comprehension and whether the singer really understands what I'm teaching them. That might sound extreme, but as a student myself, I know that when I have questions or something doesn't make sense, I need those questions answered before I can move on to the next thing. Anyway, all this to say that in-person versus online experiences vary from person to person and from teacher to teacher. Obviously, you need to pursue whatever makes sense for you. But there are plenty of benefits to online lessons. Now, to recap the three things that I just shared, I first mentioned looking into a teacher's performing and educational background, though I'd maybe argue that that's probably the least important out of the things that I shared. We also talked about looking into what a teacher specializes in and what kind of teacher they are so that you can match what you're looking for in a teacher with someone who is knowledgeable about what you want to study. And I would maybe argue that this is probably the most important thing that I shared so far. We also discussed deciding whether you want online or in-person lessons. However, even as I shared all of these things, nothing beats talking to or meeting with the teacher before you commit to more lessons with them. A lot of teachers nowadays offer free trial lessons, phone consultations where you can chat with them, and I highly, highly recommend taking advantage of such opportunities before signing up for lessons with a teacher. Especially because meeting and chatting with the teacher beforehand, before you're diving into lessons, can really, really help answer that question as to whether a teacher is the best fit for what you need right now. just as an example, when I was auditioning for grad schools, I set up trial lessons with the teachers that I was interested in studying with, and it helped me make a decision as to where I wanted to study and who I wanted to study with. Now, I'm going to share a few things that might be helpful for when you're already working with a teacher to make sure you're getting the most value out of your lessons. Now, remembering that as I'm sharing these things, that voice teachers are human, okay? We are humans that are doing our best, that make mistakes, that are bringing an entire life experience into our lessons with you. And of course, we try to be the most professional that we can. But even as I share these things, understand that first, that we are human. And as much as we are providing a service to you, and as much as you obviously want to get value out of these lessons, just remembering that we are humans first. Now, the first thing that I'll share is that it's important that expectations are decided upon from the get-go. In that first lesson with your teacher, it is crucial that your teacher is sitting down with you and that you are both discussing what it is that will be accomplished in lessons. Don't be afraid to share your goals with your teacher and ask questions. Ask them what you can expect lessons to look like in terms of the kinds of techniques and skills you'll be working on. Let them know what you would like to work on. Bottom line is that it's important to communicate with your teacher so that they can understand your goals and so that you know what to expect from lessons with them. The next thing, which is a very important thing, that I want to talk about is boundaries. And let's get one thing straight. If your teacher is making you feel emotionally or physically uncomfortable to the extreme, hightail it out of there. Or at the least, if it feels safe for you to do so, share with them that what they're asking of you is pushing you too far. Yes, teachers may have you try out certain exercises that feel physically strange at first. For example, in lessons with my own students, there is an exercise that we do that isolates the movement of the tongue from the movement of the jaw. And it's kind of a strange exercise, I'll be honest. But it's more focused on function than it is on sound. And as it is a strange exercise, it's a little bit tricky at first for students to get, but they're usually able to get it within the first few tries. So, we may do exercises at times. There may be teachers that are having you do exercises that kind of stretch you outside of your comfort zone at times. And that can feel odd. And another thing that I tend to do is I've been known to have students try acting out their songs, which can also feel vulnerable. But there is a difference between stretching your abilities outside of your comfort zone in a way that is comfortable and that feels okay, and a teacher who is just being plain hurtful or abusive. I might have shared this story before, so sorry if you've heard it already, but I once had a lesson with a teacher at a grad school I was auditioning for who literally yelled at me in the trial lesson with her for breathing through my nose. She would not let me sing a single note unless I was breathing through my mouth. Like, she kept stopping me saying, no. Like, I would start to sing and she would just cut me off. I was clearly becoming emotionally upset because I'd gotten so used to breathing in through my nose when singing this certain operatic aria, and she had no patience for it. I'm sorry, but as a teacher myself now, and obviously understanding that we're all human, I still look back on that experience and wondered what the heck she was thinking, chewing me out for not doing what she wanted. I cannot imagine chewing a student out like that, yelling at them. Like, why? Because sharing your voice with someone in such an intimate setting, such as a private lesson, it's a vulnerable experience. I hate to use the term safe space since I think it's been used by individuals with less than honest intentions, but your teacher has a responsibility to provide a space in which you feel safe to make mistakes and weird sounds, period. Some teachers may disagree with that and say that I'm soft, but I honestly don't care. We need to stop perpetuating the idea that some teachers just are the way that they are and that tearing students down in lessons and rehearsals is helping them build tougher skins. I can tell you from experience that I've been in toxic musical environments and it didn't make me stronger. It just made me jaded, burnout, and traumatized. Bottom line, your teacher owes it to you. You are literally paying them to respect your boundaries, and they should be providing a space that encourages you to feel safe enough to speak up when something feels like it's going too far. Now, to dial it back a little bit, to kind of calm down there. Sorry, I got super fired up about that topic, but it's something I'm really passionate about. The last thing I'll say, if you're currently working with a teacher, is to keep the conversation going with them when it comes to goals and progress. I always like sitting down at the beginning of the semester with my students to ask them what they'd like to focus on for the semester ahead and hearing what's on their minds. If your goals change, let your teacher know. And when it comes to progress, if you're not sure what you're supposed to be practicing in between lessons, ask your teacher what you should focus on. I've had students ask me that question before. They're like, what should I do when I practice? And we talk through a practice plan together. And if you're feeling stagnant in your lessons, I encourage you to share your thoughts with your teacher. Ask them where they see your singing going. Like, what is the plan for 3 to 6 months from now? What are the things that we're going to work on together? And what is the vision that they have for your voice? Where do they see your voice going? And what skills you might have to look forward to? If your teacher is just as lost as you are when it comes to why you might be stagnating, then it may be worth finding a second opinion. All right, so we covered a bunch of info in this episode today. I hope that you'll take some of these things into consideration when you're looking for a voice teacher or you're currently working with one, understanding that while I can't cover every single unique situation, these things are good places to start. Now, if you liked this episode, I would be very grateful if you left a 5-star rating and review and followed us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, subscribe on YouTube, follow us on socials at VEROSE Music, Vero's Music on Instagram, and Sing with Vero on TikTok. All of that is linked in the show description. And until next time, happy singing, y'all.